episode number 3, where Josh and I will be talking about the Browns versus Ravens game this weekend. Once again, another game, another loss for the Cleveland Browns. This time, once again, it was another close game. The final score is 24-17 Ravens, and it drops the Browns to 0-3 on the young season. The first thoughts that you took away from this game?
The first thing I can say is I'm just disappointed. This is the third game in the row where the Browns have been winning in the second half and have just had a meltdown.
One big thing that I took away from it, and in my Browns website, I said that if they held the Ravens to under 125 yards rushing and had 0 turnovers, they would have a very good shot at winning this game. Well, they actually did both.
Yeah.
They didn't turn the ball over in Baltimore, which is a feat in itself, and they still couldn't pull out the win. So what exactly went wrong? We're going to talk about that. The first thing we're going to cover is Peyton Hillis. Now, Jerome Harrison is normally the starting running back, was hurt, did not play, so Peyton Hillis got the starting nod. And what a job he did.
Yeah.
He had 22 carries, 144 rushing yards, which is the most a Browns running back has ever rushed for against the Ravens defense.
And he had a touchdown.
And he added a touchdown to it too. Now, Peyton, as we talked about before, has a very physical running style. He hits people, he drives people to the ground. My question to you, Josh, is can he keep up this running style if he's the starting running back over a 16-game schedule?
Can he keep it over an entire season? Yes, possibly. There's always that chance. There's these guys in the NFL that have these great years, like a Marion Barber or Brandon Jacobs, where they're straight-ahead runners, and that's all they do is run straight ahead. Now, is that good over a career? No, because it's going to wear them down because they're taking lots of shots, lots of hits. It's a ton of contact, and he seeks out contact.
The second question we're going to ask is Seneca Wallace. Played very well the last game. Moved around, seemed a lot more mobile, flushed out, found guys, after maybe routes broke down, found guys that were open. Did a good job doing that.
Well, yeah, the unfortunate thing about that is the guys he's finding are not our wide receivers.
Nope.
It's the Ben Watson at tight end or Peyton Hillis out of the backfield, or this week it was James Davis out of the backfield, but no production out of your wide receivers. And I say that in the nicest way, I guess, possibly, is that, we're looking for Josh Cribbs to be a better wide receiver this year, and he has. He's stepped up, caught 5 balls for about 60 yards in this game. The Browns have so little depth at wide receiver, it's ridiculous, and it's sickening, to be quite honest.
Should the Browns sign Jerry Rice out of retirement?
Yes.
Well, there's no doubt that Peyton Hillis was the player of the game for the Browns. You could argue that the Ravens' player of the game was Browns cornerback Eric Wright. He continually got torched by Anquan Bolden throughout the game. He allowed Bolden to rack up 142 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. He often looked lost, confused. He looked like Josh out on the dance floor, flailing around and not knowing what he was doing. What other things did you see from Eric Wright today?
Well, yeah, let's face it. Eric Wright is supposed to be our number 1 corner, and he just got absolutely manhandled this week. Reggie Rucker pointed out after the game that Eric Wright has slow hips, his feet are slow, he doesn't oftentimes take the best routes when covering wide receivers, and that's how it looked. And the saddest thing is that a lot of times he probably does need help over the top, but A.B. Elam is not a great cover guy, T.J. Ward is a rookie, so the secondary still has a lot to prove. But as far as Eric Wright, getting back to him, he's supposed to step up in this situation. He's going to have to face him again, but hopefully we put Sheldon Brown on him because obviously he just cannot cover anything.
And I was going to ask you, is it Joe Hayden time? Because that's your 7th overall pick. He's your corner. Do you start using him more, or do you put him in the starting lineup, if not just for a game, over Wright to maybe send Wright a message?
Well, I would have liked to have seen, if I were Rob Ryan in this game, and after the second touchdown, I would have moved Sheldon Brown over to cover Anquan Bolden.
Yeah.
I would have let Joe Hayden come in and cover T.J. Houshmandzadeh to see what he's going to... you got to see, and Houshmandzadeh is still a pretty decent wide receiver in the league. See what Joe Hayden can do against him. Put Eric Wright in the slot if that's what he's best at, because then he's going to be covering Derek Mason. But let's face it, it's easy to overlook the mistakes Eric Wright was making when teams were picking on Brandon McDonald and Terry Cousin last year.
Yep.
So, when you have a crappy guy on one side, it's easy to make the other guy look really good.
And coming up next week, the Browns take on the Cincinnati Bengals at home. The Bengals actually beat the Ravens already this year, so they're looking good. What do you see? What do we need to do to get our first win and potentially knock off a good Cincinnati team.
Well, like you stated earlier, the Browns have to continue winning the turnover battle. No turnovers this week. They didn't force any turnovers either, but not giving any away really helps them. Win the turnover battle, continue to run the ball, control the game, and just pray that Carson Palmer continues to make bad passes. He threw 2 picks last week, and you just got to hope that he's not settled in yet.
Yeah, he struggled last week, and another thing, you got to limit the ground game. Cedric Benson, you got to contain him, which I think they can do. They've done a good job with Ray Rice. They contained him yesterday, so hopefully next week they get their first win. I have a feeling we might be saying that for a couple weeks coming up here, that hopefully they get their first win. With Atlanta coming up, you got Pittsburgh coming up, you got New Orleans coming up.
And New England after that. So obviously the second half of the season is going to be much easier when you get Carolina and Jacksonville and Buffalo and the Miami Dolphins. So,
So, so hopefully we get a win in Cincinnati next week. If not, there's always next week, right?
Yeah.
That'll do it for today's episode of Desperate in Cleveland. Tune in next time, and hopefully we'll be talking about a Browns win, but don't hold your breath. As always, stay desperate, Cleveland. We'll see you next time.